Okay, well, we're going to now look at the ophthalmoscope, and Steve's going to run through some of the controls. But before we do that, Steve, could you just tell me when would you use an ophthalmoscope, and what's it really for?
Okay, so an ophthalmoscope is an instrument that enables us to look at the back of the eye and to assess how clear the clear parts of the eye are, so whether somebody has a cataract or not, for instance, and that would be its main function. Okay, so this is the direct ophthalmoscope. There are other types of ophthalmoscope, but this is the direct one, which is perhaps the easiest to learn to use and the most portable. So we have a number of controls on the ophthalmoscope. This is where you turn it on with this ring here, and then up here you have controls that relate to how it focuses and the type of light that comes out. One thing that's important to show you is the battery, which is going to be in here, and you can take the batteries out like that and then just replace this end cap and do it up. And in fact the top part of the ophthalmoscope will come off so that you can change the bulb. So if I take you through the controls, there are two main sides to the ophthalmoscope. The first side is the illumination system, and then the second side is the viewing system. We'll deal with the illumination system first. So if I turn the ophthalmoscope on, you can see this window lights up, and if I shine the instrument onto this piece of paper, you can see that we have a beam of light coming out. Now on the reverse of the instrument there are some controls which I'll just show you. So there's a control here which deals with the size of the beam that we're using, and I can turn that, I'll show you in a moment. And then here we have a control that deals with the color of the light that we're using. So if I show you first of all the different sizes of beam, so we have this one, the smallest one, which is the macular stop, and then if I move the little wheel round we come to a medium-sized beam, then a large beam, and then we have a slit and a grid or graticule, sometimes used for glaucoma. I would suspect that it's probably best not to worry about the grid or the line. They are rarely used. The very large beam is only really used when people have very large pupils, so perhaps looking through a dilated pupil, or sometimes a child or teenager with large pupils. And probably the best general purpose beam is this medium-sized one for most things. And perhaps if you're trying to look through a cataract, or you're trying to look at the central macular area of the retina, then to use the very small beam would be advantageous. But generally use that medium-sized beam. So next we want to just look at the different colors. So this is a clear beam, then we also have a green beam or red free, this is a blue beam, and this is yellow. There is a suggestion that yellow helps you see certain layers within the retina, but I would think that is probably seldom used. Blue would be to use with fluorescein angiography, so I don't think you will really be interested in that one. So we're looking really at the green and the clear. I would use the clear most of the time. That's the general one you want to use. And if you're looking at blood vessels, so you're looking at arteries and veins, or looking for hemorrhaging or bleeding at the back of the eye, then the green is going to show up blood better against the colour of the fundus. So generally speaking it's the white beam, and if you're wanting to show up blood or hemorrhaging better, then switch to the green beam. So that's the illumination system. We've dealt with the size of the beam and also the colour of the beam, and now we're going to have a look at the viewing system. So the viewing system, there are two controls here. So there is a wheel at the side which I'm turning now, and then there is a little lever here which we can move as well. And you'll notice that there are different coloured numbers in this window here. If you look at the bottom number, you'll see currently it's a black 9, but if we move here we're coming on to red numbers. The red numbers are minus numbers, the black numbers are plus numbers. Similarly, if we use this switch here at the top, then we can get a black 20 and a red 20 appearing in our window. So to begin your examination, I would suggest you have the top one on 0 and the bottom number on black 9. And if you look through this ophthalmoscope, it will focus now roughly 10 centimeters away. So this will enable you to have a look at the front of the eye using good magnification, and also to check whether you have a nice red reflex from the lens of the eye. If you're not seeing a red reflex, if for instance there is any cataract present, then you will see the opacity of the cataract showing up as black against the red reflex of the fundus. Then, having looked at the front of the eye and the lens, you can then click your way through here, down deeper and deeper into the eye, until, if the person has no real prescription and you have no real prescription, once you get to 0, you should be pretty much in focus on the back of the eye, on the retina. And if you then have to carry on onto these red numbers, then this would indicate that the person is a little bit short-sighted. Now, you do have to make an allowance for your own prescription. So if you yourself have a plus prescription, then perhaps if you were +9, then when you have this +9 lens in the prescription, in the window here, then you won't actually be in focus up close. You will be looking far away. So you do have to make an allowance for your own prescription when using this instrument. But generally speaking, start with the high black number, work your way down till you can see the fundus, and then you examine the fundus by looking around within the eye. Always best to do this examination procedure in the dark. You won't see very much if the lights are on or if you're outside. Okay, so we're going to do a little introduction to the correct posture and positioning for direct ophthalmoscopy. So the first thing to do is to have the room lights off. But we can't do that here today, because if we do that you won't see anything on the video. So you have to imagine the room lights are off. Now I ask the patient to take their glasses off, and I get them to look up and to the left. So Ian, if you could look up and to the left, and this means that when I look in at this angle, I should be looking in towards their optic disc. Turn the ophthalmoscope on, and we put +9 in the sight hole so that I can see +9 in that little window. And then I'm going to come in and look at the front of the eye. So at this point I'm seeing the front of the eye and a nice red reflex. You cannot do direct ophthalmoscopy at this distance. You have to be very, very close, and you place your other hand on the patient's head so you don't bang heads with them, and so that you can hold their eyelid up with your thumb. Then I come into this position, and as I click through, I'm going deeper and deeper into the eye in focus until at this point I can see the optic nerve at the back of the eye, and it is in focus and clear. And then what I will do is I will scan around the optic nerve, looking at the blood vessels, looking for any abnormality. And then I will ask Ian to look in different directions so that I can look at different parts of the retina. So Ian, if you could look to your left, and now I will examine the nasal retina. Notice how I'm moving with the ophthalmoscope to scan the back of the eye. And now Ian, if you could look to your right, and again I'm coming close and scanning that retina. Now if you look up at the ceiling, and again I'm scanning now the superior retina, looking for abnormalities. And now Ian, if you could look at the floor, and there we are, we're looking down at the floor, looking at the inferior retina. And now Ian, if you could look straight ahead, I go in and I find that optic disc again, and then I look across towards the macula and view that. And it may be that I think it would be good to just change over to that smaller stop. So we're just going to change over to that one, and then have a little look in at that macula again. There we are, and that completes the examination. And we move across now to examine the other eye, and with this I should use my other eye, but we won't worry about that now. Hello and welcome to an introduction to the major slit lamp. So this is a slit lamp, which is an instrument which enables us to examine the eye in detail. The front of the eye using the slit lamp as it stands here, and then the back of the eye if we use supplementary lenses. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of the slit lamp and what it's capable of. So essentially there are two parts to the slit lamp. There is this part here, which is the observation system, and then there is this part here, which is the illumination system. And you'll see that they both rotate about this point here, so that whatever is illuminated by the illuminating system is also being viewed by the observation system here. So just a couple of quick points to make. The first is that slit lamps can be locked. So around the side here there's a little screw that if we lock that, nothing will move, and if we undo it, then the slit lamp will move around. Similarly, there will be a lock here which will lock the system so that they won't rotate, and if I undo it, then everything will move. So if you come to your slit lamp and you find nothing moves, it's probably locked, so you just need to work out how to unlock it, don't force it. Then if we have a look first of all at the general adjustments, we have a joystick and we can move the slit lamp in and out using the joystick. For very fine adjustments we just use it gently, or you can push the whole instrument around like that. To raise it and lower it, you generally turn the joystick like that to bring the slit lamp up and down. You can adjust the patient's head on the chin rest using this turner here. And generally speaking, you want the patient's eye to be level with the eye level marker there. You also have a system here so that you can ask the patient to look at the light on the end here in order to direct their gaze in a particular direction. Okay, so let's have a little look at the observation system first of all. You've got a binocular observation system. You can move the eyepieces in and out so that they suit your own pupillary distance. You can also focus these eyepieces as well. If you come to a slit lamp and you can't see through it, check that the eyepieces are focused appropriately for you. Then you also have on the sides usually a magnification system. So this magnification system is continuous. A lot of them click stop, so they will move from one magnification to another. Sometimes you'll find a lever here that changes the magnification. Often you can remove the eyepieces and put a different eyepiece in also to change the magnification. Then if we have a look at the illumination system, and you'll see that there's a light up the top here, and the light comes down through some optics to this mirror and then is diverted in towards the eye. So in terms of what can we change, we can change the width of the light, the height of the light, the angle of the light, the colour of the light. So if you have a look at my hand here, you can see the beam of the slit lamp just here shining onto my hand, and I can adjust the width like this, I can adjust the height like this, I can adjust the colour like this, and I can also adjust the angle of the light like this. So all of these adjustments are possible using the slit lamp. One little refinement that is worth pointing out is if you have a look in this window at the top, you will see a scale, and this is a scale of the height of the beam. So we can measure things on the eye using this. So if we see something, we're suspicious that perhaps it may be a tumour or is growing or something of this sort, then we can say, well, let's measure it by putting the slit beam onto it, and then by looking and changing this until it's the height of the beam equals the length or breadth or whatever of the thing we're looking at, we can measure it very precisely. So that's a brief introduction to the major slit lamp. I said I'd talk about how you can use it to view the back of the eye. Generally that's using lenses such as this. And for this you would have to have obviously a patient sat in front, but the idea is that you put the light through this lens, and then the instrument can function as an ophthalmoscope. One thing I'd just like to highlight is that at the top of the instrument here we can set the illumination to a blue, and this gives us a nice blue light, and this light can be used in conjunction with fluorescein instilled into the eye in order to show up dry eyes and any scratches or abrasions or ulcers on the front of the eye. When would we use the slit lamp? Well, we would use the slit lamp for examining the front of the eye for pretty much anything. So we would use the slit lamp for examining to find foreign bodies, or to look for signs of infection, or to look for a dry eye or for allergy, to look at cataracts, to look for signs of inflammation such as uveitis, iritis, and then, as I've mentioned before, by using supplementary lenses we can look at the back of the eye. But perhaps the most straightforward thing is to use it as an instrument for detailed examination of the front of the eye.